you're not supposed to technically get better, right? You're supposed to die of PVOD. And I survived for, oh goodness, my time. I think it's 12 years with, it was 5 misdiagnosed, 7 on oxygen 24/7. And it was miraculous that I actually lived 12 years with these illnesses. I then got better. I started performing. I started doing everything I could. I always have believed in doing what you can with what you have.
Imagine hearing from your doctors that you had no chance to survive. Yet you prove them wrong. In this episode, Chloe Temtchine shares the mindset tools that helped her overcome a rare illness and survive a double lung transplant. She explains how she rewired her thinking, created her own version of hope, and took back control of her life when no one else could do it for her. If you've ever felt powerless or stuck, this conversation will show you what's possible when you change the way you think. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioural science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, nickbracks, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew, so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, we discuss how to take back control of your life. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Chloe, so great to meet you. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. Super excited to have this conversation. Grateful that you've, made the time to come and chat to our listeners. So yeah, let's get going. I mean, the first thing actually, before we get into anything, I'm just going to ask if you can give a quick background just on yourself and how you came to be where you are today, just so our listeners can sort of get a history on you.
It's almost comedic when you say a quick background because the story is so really long. I'm like, how do you make this quick? The fastest way that I can describe this is that I am alive, and there were so many reasons for me not to be. I was sick for so many years, for 15 years. And I'll get into obviously more of this, but I'm still trying to make it quick. Received a life-saving double lung transplant in 2020. And it's now 5 years later. It clearly, we're in 2025. I'm a musician, so I'm like, I don't remember the year. I don't remember the day. But I am just experiencing such an incredible amount of gratitude in my life that is otherworldly. It's hard to express. So yes, the story is very long, but I'm here sort of sharing what's happened, ideally spreading a message that could inspire those going through some serious life challenges to remember that it is possible, even when it seems impossible.
Yeah, I mean, so powerful. And we'll dive deeper into it. That's it. Yeah, you've given the very quick overview there. But I mean, I don't know where to begin myself, but I guess like we'll go back to, so you... So singing, you were doing that before, is that always been what you've been doing?
Yes. So I'll kind of give you the chunks of life. So music always, my whole life. Started probably when I was like 6 years old. My father used to take me to a Baptist church in Harlem in New York City, where you have spent a lot of time, I know. And I would sit there and listen to hours and hours of gospel music, and it just hit me. And so I started singing, and I started singing these little jazz clubs, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Bronx. I'll never forget, on Gun Hill Road, and I got up and sang when I was 7. And you don't know at 7 years old to be nervous. You don't know yet, so you're like going at it. And so all of that started really young and has stayed with me. And it's always been music, songwriting, singing, playing piano, guitar, whatever instrument I needed to write the song. And that turned into taking it really seriously, going to Berklee College of Music in Boston. And then I was performing and living in kind of New York, Boston, doing everything. And I'm sort of going through my life kind of quickly, but everything was fine. Healthy kid, healthy everything. Life was great. And I started to notice, I was in the studio one day and I had a sharp pain in my either left or right, I think it was the right shoulder, which then kind of lodged itself into my lung area. And every time I breathed, it was like glass was shattering inside. And these were first symptoms of something I had no idea was going to be essentially the end of my life. And this progressed and became worse. And I would get on stage. And by the time, those three little steps to get on the stage, I'd get up there and I'm like, and I can't breathe and I'm about to pass out. And I was like, wow, I'm really out of shape. So this led to 5 years, which is pretty insane, of being misdiagnosed by like the best doctors, these top doctors in the United States at all of these different hospitals. And they would diagnose me with the wrong thing. So I was like, oh, you have blood clots. Oh, you have, an autoimmune disease. Oh, and so I was hospitalized constantly. And then told at the end of it, well, actually, you don't have that. And we don't know what you have. So that went on for 5 years. It got worse and worse and worse to the point where I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom because I was so short of breath. And pulmonary hypertension, it's not a very known disease. The tricky thing, a lot of the reason that I talk about this is because the symptoms are the same symptoms for so many other diseases, right? So it's confused with so much, even psychiatric problems. I was told you need to go see a psychiatrist. It's all in your head. So I was like, oh, that's amazing. It's like you wish it's all in your head. So I went. Sure enough, it wasn't in my head. I would have loved for it to be. But I was finally, so 5 years later, I was in severe heart failure. And I ended up in the emergency room. And it was sort of the beginning of being told, we have now found that you not only have pulmonary arterial hypertension, PAH, but you have something called PVOD, pulmonary veno-occlusive disease, which is extremely rare. And life expectancy for PH is about 2 years for PAH. And for PVOD, it's like, as I say, it's like 5 minutes. So it's really under a year. And I don't think anyone has survived over a year. I could have my facts wrong, but from, I think, the literature, no one has. And I had already lived with this thing for 5 years. And so, and please just stop me because I'm going to just go on and on and on until I get to now. Basically. Okay. It's like a monologue of Chloe Temtchine. So I then end up diagnosed and told that I don't have much time to live because essentially there's nothing they can do, because if you have PH, you can't treat it or at least treat it with the proper meds because you have PVOD. So the PVOD prevents you from being able to use the medication for PH, if that makes sense. It makes you worse. So that was tricky. So I then left the hospital, strangely enough, on massive doses of oxygen, but they didn't know what to do with me and I wasn't dying. And they just sent me home essentially to die, which is pretty depressing. And that is when you come in, because I know you're a huge mindset person. And I went home, and with my partner at the time, we went into major research mode. How can I heal my body? How can I not let that future be my future, which was a horrible one? And how can I sort of take that power back, which I talk about a lot? So when you're sick, you feel so powerless, And miraculously, it was just one discovery after the other about food, about mindset, about diving into a world of creative expression so my mind could focus on something that was inspiring versus symptoms and dying and, spending quality time with the people I love. These are my 5 principles. Exercise, which at that time was like going to the bathroom, right? I couldn't get from the couch to the bathroom. So that was my exercise at that time. And it was really building upon these 5 core principles that helped me get better and better and better. And it took a lot of time, but no one could believe I was getting better because unmedicated, very low dose of medication I was on, you're not supposed to technically get better, right? You're supposed to die of PVOD. And I survived for, oh goodness, my time. I think it's 12 years with, it was 5 misdiagnosed, 7 on oxygen 24/7. And it was miraculous that I actually lived 12 years with these illnesses. I then got better. I started performing. I started doing everything I could. I always have believed in doing what you can with what you have because I didn't want to stop my life, even though I would show sort of to the world as things were improving. I was sort of showing what I was doing to try to help others that were going through similar challenges, but I would go hide when I wasn't right. So I'd be like hiding for 2 weeks, like I can't, oh my God, I can't breathe. And then I'd come out when I felt better and share things that were helping me, if that makes sense. And then this led to me then getting worse. So my heart essentially couldn't take it anymore. I had strayed a bit from my protocol, which I know we'll probably get into because of mindset stuff. And I know you're heavy on that. But I started straying from my food protocol because I felt so much better. And I got worse and I got worse and I got worse. And that is when the second wave of what was the biggest nightmare hit. And I was on my treadmill and I was walking, and all of a sudden my heart shot up to 180 beats per minute, like major tachycardia, just nonstop. And I waited and waited hours. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the ER because if I do, I had this vision of I'm either going to die or they're going to try to give me a transplant, right? A lung transplant, which I was so scared of at the time. I cannot even tell you. I was probably more scared of the transplant than of dying because of so much that I heard, which was really bad. So I, sure enough, hours later, thank God I didn't die, because my doctor was like, if you don't call the ambulance now, you will in fact die in your home. So I was so nauseous. I was so sick. So I grabbed, of all things, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I grabbed my makeup bag and then it's vanity, you know what I mean? I called, my partner at the time, Dave, he called the ambulance and they came over and took me to the hospital. Thank God they did, because when I got there, they tried to stop my, heart from basically exploding. And they thought they did for a few seconds, but I eventually went into cardiac arrest, which is inexplicable, to basically suffocate to death, which is what happened. They lost me. So it's really miraculous that I'm alive, because they had to bring me back to life. And when I came back to life, I was on a machine called ECMO, which is a life support machine that has caused some pretty intense damage to my legs. But anyway, kept me alive. And, then you're in a movie where it's like a matter of time, because you can't stay on ECMO for too long because it destroys your organs and you could bleed out at any time. But you need it because it's now your lungs and your heart, because they no longer work. So, and I'm almost there. I'm almost at now. I basically went from being so scared of a transplant to realizing that it was really my only hope for survival, and praying and begging after telling everybody, no, I just want to go home. Just send a taxi. I don't want a transplant. To praying for lungs. And the final note is one of the trickier parts in my case, is because I'm small. A lot of these organs go to kids first. And I don't know how. I mean, this is where the miracle comes in. I got so incredibly lucky because it took a week. And this can take years, right, to receive an organ. A week for lungs to come in. I was at the highest point of the list because it was so severe that you move up on the list. It's pretty severe when you're on life support, and it's a matter of days. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I received these lungs, and then the story, of course, continues. But that is the not short story of how I kind of got to that point. And I'll just be quiet for a second and let you speak.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's a crazy story. And like, how long ago was that? From now, when you had the operation and moving forward?
That was 2020. That was August 5th, 2020. Yeah, 5 months ago. We're almost there to the fifth, my fifth birthday. So I'm five. I'm
There you
almost
go.
five, which I feel like I
New lease on
am.
life, yeah.
You know,
And how? What's the process been like in that 5 years? Was it a slow process in recovering and adjusting, or how did that? How was that for you?
in the beginning, yes, it does take a long time. I mean, I would say this. I'd say the biggest recovery or the biggest difficulty in recovery for me was my legs
Mm,
from ECMO. So not when you have a transplant, you're not necessarily on ECMO. That's very
mm,
unique. Um, so because the pain was so intense from that machine, it's almost like my lung transplant, which is very painful, took a back seat in terms of pain. And the rehabilitation was actually unbelievably fast for my lungs compared to my legs, if that makes sense. So the it takes like kind of 6 months to get to where I had to relearn how to walk and I had to relearn how to understand that these were my lungs. Because in the beginning, it's so weird. Your nerves don't connect, right? So it takes time. So you know how you're just breathing. You don't know you're breathing. But when you receive these new lungs and the nerves are not connected, you have to breathe. So you have to make yourself like, otherwise you won't necessarily breathe, right? And you won't necessarily
mm.
cough. So you have to cough a lot. Like it doesn't know yet what to do, which is sort of an insane concept. So I couldn't sleep because I was like, oh my God, what if I fall asleep and I stop
Yeah,
breathing? So I just kind of, it was like this for a long time. So there was so much stuff that's involved. And there was so much what you would call trauma, really going through so much physical pain that it's almost too much to get into in
yeah.
this. But that you think, I said to myself when I was intubated for 12 hours wide awake, given adrenaline. You're supposed to be asleep, but they couldn't put me out. So I had to kind of take every hit, every step of the way. And I thought to myself, if I survive this, and there were like demons coming after me, it was a real nightmare because you're hallucinating and there's so much stuff going on. I thought this is going to cause a major, like, if I survive this, I'm going to be a word I won't use on your podcast because it's family friendly, but I'm going to be a mess,
Mm,
right? Well, not necessarily. I came out of this and I think ultimately the message being that I am so incredibly grateful to be alive that the gratitude has trumped all of that stuff. And that is somewhat of a both nightmare of a story and miraculous story that now just feels like this incredible blessing. And I almost don't associate to those parts of the story, if that makes sense, that are so awful. They're just sort of like a movie that happened.
yeah.
I mean, occasionally I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe what happened, and I'll burst into tears. But it's more so the gratitude part that is taken over than the trauma part, if that makes sense.
Totally
You
makes
know?
sense. Yeah, 100%. And has it given you sort of a
Mhm.
different appreciation for life? Has it made, I guess, things that probably to a lot of us would feel we might get worried about? Has it given you the ability to look at things and really see what is important and what's not because of going through that? And does that stay with you? If you're feeling stuck, you're not alone. Most people don't realize how connected your mental health is to your body, from your gut to your sleep, movement, food, mindset. Getting active each day can shift how you feel, build confidence, and transform your quality of life. At Move Your Mind, we guide you through this process step by step. If this resonates and you want to learn more, simply go to my Instagram at nickbracks and click the link on the bio to fill out an application, and I'll send you over more information about the program. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. If you find the show helpful, please share it with a friend and follow me on Instagram. It really helps.
Good
Mm,
question there. Does it stay with you? So it's what I would call a massive dose of perspective, 100%. The interesting thing is that, yes, it does. And then sometimes it goes away, which is, I think, almost a great thing because we're human,
yeah.
right? And we can't every moment be like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be, oh my God, I'm so happy to,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you just want to punch me in the face at that point? So I have those incredible moments. And then sometimes when I'm like, oh, my coffee's cold, right? And I'm complaining about just such BS, I get happy that I'm complaining about that because I'm like, oh, look at you being like a
Mm,
person, right? So, yes, in a way you do, and you just become human again. And thank God we do. but I always see it kind of from the bird's eye view. So I'm always able to separate myself from the experience and think, wow, as long as I'm alive, I'm well. The people that I love are alive and well. Everything is
Yeah.
fine. All the rest can be sorted out. Nothing is that big of a deal. It's all fine, you know? So, yes, massive dose of perspective. Um, and I have a sign right behind me that you can't see, of course, because
Oh, yeah.
I've positioned you in a weird way. But it says, what if everything goes right? And that's a huge thing for me because I think, after transplant, and I don't really like talking about, life expectancy and all the stats that they give because they're not
Mm.
great. If you look it up, it's very depressing, right? So I let that go and I don't like to look at all that stuff. And I didn't with pH either because it's not great with that either. But the what if everything goes right concept seems so simple and almost ridiculous, but I think so much time is spent thinking, oh no, what if something does go wrong? Because it can. So much can go wrong, right? For anyone dealing with life in general at all. But especially after a transplant, I mean, because you're
Mm.
immunocompromised, your body could decide they don't like your lungs, and then you're basically goodbye and thank you. So there's so many things that could happen that there's too much that could go wrong. So I just sort of brainwash myself again into believing that what if things really do go right? And since I've already been at the end of my life and I've already looked back, I already know that feeling of having wanted to have lived in a way that makes you feel, it's just so simple, but that makes you feel good. So what a waste our life would have been had we lived thinking it would all go wrong. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? No matter what, whether it does go wrong or not, it's like you don't want to waste your life believing that
Yeah.
and reaching the end thinking, what? Wow, I spent my time thinking that.
Exactly.
Much good that did. The joke's on me. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So there's my
Well, I
sign
think
right
it's such a
there.
good point because, like you're saying, like it's sort of more in your face for the experience that you went through to have to think like that. But it applies to all of us because it's a natural thing where we will just look at what if this goes wrong, what if this happens, etc. But we just don't know. And, anything could happen at any time. So the only thing we really can do is try and look for how do I get the most out of this because we can't we just don't know what's going to
Exactly.
happen. We can only put our best foot forward. So I think that's such a good message.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I know you're so big on mindset. And I was reading, I mean, I'm not supposed to probably be asking you questions, but I was reading obviously about you and how you got into all of this, which is very interesting. And how you have had to kind of, I guess, switch your own mindset from going from a certain state that wasn't necessarily a great one, from what I read, to where you are
Mm.
now. And I found it to be very interesting. I mean, I don't know if you want to, I'm flipping the interview on you, but um, yeah, I mean, for me, it's just
Yeah.
interesting to know where that flip comes in. Like, what made you decide to go from what I saw, which was you were suffering from depression and there had been this car situation. How did you flip that?
Mm.
Because that's always a big thing, and then sort of lead your life in a completely different way from there on.
Yeah.
How did you make that decision to flip that?
Exactly. I think, it's a really good question. And it's sort of what got me into that work because I think I really
Hmm.
hit that rock bottom, had a car crash where, my best friend and myself almost got killed. It was a big news story. I was so stuck. I couldn't get out of bed. So it had just gotten to a point where I almost knew that I had to do something. And it was just having to, you know, put one foot in front of the other, stop trying to think too far ahead. And that really is what taught me all the things I talk about today because by doing that, I really had no idea if anything would get better. I didn't really know what I cared about, but it was just do one thing at a time. And, went back to
Mm.
university, met some new people, went, and then that led to another thing. And then, I was on a TV show and then I was asked to share my story. And then it was sort of, then I got asked to go and do a talk and then I got asked to talk in companies. And before I knew it, I was like, what the hell? Like I'm on a path that I actually couldn't have imagined that is better than what I originally
Right.
wanted. But none of this would have happened if I didn't actually go through the pain, if I didn't come out of it, if I didn't put one foot in front of the other. And, it really taught me that lesson that we can't just sit there and think our way out of things. We've got to take action. We've got
Right.
to just for whatever it is. It's about just doing something. So that was really the sort of core thing that that I learned from that.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's exactly it. It's action.
Taking
Do
action.
something,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're powerless. It's that feeling of being powerless, which relates to this too when you're not well. You feel so powerless, So it's like, how do you flip
Mm,
that and find a way?
yeah,
It's like there's always a way. What is that way?
exactly,
You know?
exactly. Which
Yeah,
I can't imagine how difficult and the experience you went through it would be to try and not fall into the negative thinking and be looking at the positive. It must sort of, I guess it's sort of you're forced to almost because there's no alternative. But I really can't imagine.
it's exactly what you said. In my case, it's that there was no
Mm,
option. You can't even in the hospital. I mean, the only times that I felt emotion was when the lungs came in, right? Because I was so
mm,
incredibly grateful. But when it comes to the difficult parts, you can't, for me, I could never let myself go into them. I never thought, why did this happen
mm,
to me? I, it doesn't, it didn't exist in my world. It was more about, okay, this is happening. How do I get
mm,
through this? Why is this happening? Why? Because there's something, for you, it's obvious too. You can see that you had to go through that to get to this and to get, so there's always, it's like you're watching a movie about your life and you're like, oh my God, that happened. Okay, so how am I going to get from point A to point B? And I think if you let yourself get into that negativity, it's very dangerous, especially if your life's at stake. Uh, there was no option. I guess I knew subconsciously that if I ever did, which is not really in my nature to
mm.
do anyway, but if I ever did, it'd be too dangerous.
Yeah,
There was no time for that. There was no space for that. And I think when you're told by doctors continuously that you're going to die, not we think you might, but you're not going to be able to survive. Like it's only a matter of
mm,
days, or it's, you know, that's so dangerous because, and I know the intention is to scare you into a transplant or scare you into something that might help you. The intention's not
yeah,
bad, but what that does to someone who's not well is very dangerous.
makes
So I
sense.
always, because what you believe is tends to be what happens. I wanted to become that person because this is like a short story, but when I came home from the hospital, I wanted to find that person that was living and thriving and doing all these things with PAH. I was like, oh my God, there has to be someone out there that I can look up to. And I kept finding death and progressive and sick and no cure. And I couldn't find it. So I thought, is there any way, how can I turn myself into that person for myself to save my own life, but also so that nobody else has to think so essentially so that they can see that there is somebody out there that is thriving with this illness and that is living and I wanted to be able to do that became my mission essentially. So uh, in doing that, I started to get better and better and better. But I think that even, when we know that there's one person, just one is all you need to know, that did survive something impossible to survive, it gives us the power to kind of counteract those words when we have to hear you're going to die. If that person can say, well, wait a second, I know one person who didn't,
Exactly.
right? And it already happened. I've already lived that chunk of time with PVOD. So you already can live that chunk of time, I know for a fact, with PVOD, right? Taking care of yourself. But that's all it takes. You just need to know what happened. And
Mm,
so for me, that was a big thing, to know that it's possible and to shift your future. And just like you did, to take it, to use that to create something
yeah.
good. You know what I
And
mean?
how powerful do you think the
Yeah.
mind is in that process? You refusing to think about the negative. Do you
Mm.
think you would have survived it if you didn't think on the positive side? If you're feeling stuck, we get it. Most people don't realize how connected your mind is to your body. Sleep, gut health, food, exercise, it all matters. At Move Your Mind, we help you lose weight, build confidence, and reset your mindset in just 100 days. There's no extremes and no experience needed. We guide you to build simple habits and routines that will last for a lifetime. If this resonates and you want to learn more, simply go to my Instagram at nickbracks and click the link on the bio to fill out an application, and I'll send you over more information about the program. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. If you have any suggestions for new topics or guests, please send me a DM on Instagram at nickbracks. Mm.
hard to know, but I don't think that that would have been good.
Yeah.
I don't think there was room for an ounce of. Now, I'll rephrase that. When I say an ounce of negativity, I don't really mean that, because there are very difficult times in the midst of going through what really was 15 years of my experience of almost dying and surviving and oxygen and transplant. So during that time, I mean, yes, there are moments that are so
Mm.
dark that I can't pretend that those don't exist. Of course they do, but they're limited. So I have always made sure that they're little chunks of existence, that they don't take over my life. And I give myself those moments. I give myself like the 5 minute cry that I talk about. I'm like, you just go in your bathroom, because that's my little safe place. Play your music, do what you need to do. Let all of it out. Just go at it. And when that 5 minutes is up, just goodbye and thank you. I'm done. I'm back to
Yeah.
healing, because that is part of your
Yeah.
healing and you can't pretend it's not happening. But dwelling in that is what I think is dangerous, and believing that, essentially believing what you
Mm.
hear can be dangerous. So, yeah, I think sometimes it's like creating your own future in a way. It was what I called at that time rewriting my own future, because I didn't like the future that was presented, which was not one.
Absolutely.
you know, well, I thought, well, that's not a good idea. I don't like what they're saying, so I better go rethink this. But yes, mindset was
Mm.
huge, huge. I don't know if you know the book, The Miracle Man. Have you ever seen The Secret?
Yes.
The movie The
I
Secret?
know what you mean.
I used to make fun of that movie. I was like, oh, about The Secret, until I watched that when I was sick, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I watched it every single day for about 3 months, over and over, and because every day is a new day and you
Mm.
forget. And Morris Goodman, who's in that movie, I don't know if you remember, he walks out of the hospital. He has the plane crash, and then he walks out of the hospital, and he's basically paralyzed from the waist down, but commits to walking out of the hospital by December, and then he does. And he wrote a book called The Miracle Man. So he became the person. It was like the same. I read that book over and over. When it was done, I was like, and we're starting again. We're starting again,
Wow.
because he survived, overcame the odds. And so those were the people that I focused on. Um, Writing notes to myself on my arms in Sharpie,
Mm.
which is probably not very healthy, but I would write like, I am healed on my arm, and go to the hospital and hide my arm. And then the doctor would say, like, you're going to die. And I would just stare at, I am healed, I am healed, while he was talking to me.
Wow.
So I could not let it, you know what I mean? So anything that I could do to counteract that belief system, I did. So the answer to your question is, it is 100%
Mm.
important. Would I have died? I don't know. Only God knows. But it played a huge role, I think, in my
It's so
survival.
powerful, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and that what you're talking about there, all of us can apply that to anything, to whatever we're
Mm,
doing in life, whatever situation we're going through. It could be, just a work situation, even just really reminding
right.
yourself that we can, the mind is so powerful if we want to focus on the right things. So I think that's a huge message. Getting it across in that way, you can really impact so many people.
I mean, if you can do it with life and death, you can do it with anything.
Exactly.
So, absolutely. I mean, that's the harder
Yeah.
one. So, at that point, well, now just go pick what you'd like to go do and just go do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And how does that, so
yeah.
what does that make you think about sort of the future, with your career or aspirations you have? Has it sort of changed how you look at that now in terms of how you're approaching it or your mindset towards that?
Very much so, in the sense that it has completely changed my mission in life. I mean, I can't, nor would I want to necessarily detach from my story, because it's everything, and it obviously happened for a reason. And so I'm trying to spread the message,
Mm.
really a message that there's no such thing as impossible. As long as we're breathing, it's possible, is how I see it. And also, bringing awareness to organ donation in general, which was asked of me of my surgeon in the hospital in such a nice way, because I was basically dead. And he walked into the room and he's like, when you get out of here, which was so nice to say, imagine
Yeah.
when, right? Because I was like, the chances were
Yeah.
0.1%. When you get out of here, will you do for organ donation what you've done for PH, right? Just bring awareness. And I was like, and I'm like, Yes, and I was so happy, and that yes, as I say, I take that yes very seriously,
Mm,
and so I'm on a mission to use my story, to use my music, to use, it's all entertainment, but it's what I know how to
yeah.
do, and to use that to really bring awareness to the cause, um, but really to bring hope to people that need it, because so many people do, and it sounds so corny to talk about hope all the time, but it's so real, and when you don't have it, oh
Mm,
my God. I mean, when you feel hopeless, I can't even, I had a moment there of that, and it's not good.
yeah.
So that has become, so yes, the answer is it's all connected, it's all combined. My whole life has changed. Everything is different. My songs have changed. I wrote an album for my donor, specifically this mysterious person who saved my
Mm,
life. Uh, so everything's is tied to that. Um, Now working on a documentary, and I just did a collaboration with this wonderful human being by the name of Freeway, who is a recording artist, and he is on a song that I wrote, which is great, which will hopefully be coming out soon. Organ recipient. He received a kidney, and also the tragic part is lost both of his kids,
wow.
and both of his kids are organ donors. So there's a major tie in all of
Huge.
that. And I think the final word in your answer, which has been shockingly long again, the answer I've given you, is that everything now for me has to have meaning, real meaning. Otherwise, I'm not really all that interested, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it makes perfect
You know what I
sense.
mean?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. It sort of feels like it's not really, you don't want to put your time into we've all got limited
Right.
time, so if you can't find that
Mhm.
meaning in it, then it's better put somewhere else, which I think is,
Right.
really again a really good message for all of us to just think about. Like often we might feel sort of that thing in our gut that we're not sort of doing, we're not where we want to be, and maybe it is because we
Mhm.
just aren't doing the things we want to do, we're not finding that meaning or whatever it is for anyone. So I think, yeah, really getting in touch with that is so important.
And also, don't forget to not forget we're mortal, which I think is so, we're very quick to forget that we're mortal. So also the doing of it now has become a big deal for me.
Yeah,
Like
because we
now,
all think we've got
like
sort of
not,
forever. It
you know,
feels like we've got more time than we
forever,
have. Yeah.
forever. Even me, after 5 years, I'm like, "Oh, I'll just do that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second, who are you? Did you forget everything that just happened? So yeah, do it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know things can take time to get done for sure, but like the waiting, that's a lot of what I think I experienced before this. It was always waiting for something. I'm like, what am I waiting for?
Yeah,
For
because there's
that?
no perfect time. There's
You
no
know,
sort of, there's never going to be the right time for anything, I guess. That's the weird thing. We all feel
not
like, yeah,
no, we have forever.
yeah,
We have forever. And then all of a sudden, oh, nope, we don't have
yeah.
forever, you know? So to just do it now.
I love
Yeah.
that.
It's the someday thing. There's not necessarily someday, which is so depressing. I wish we could all live forever.
Exactly. I know. I know. It would be, that would be the better option, I think, if we could.
Wants to live forever. I wouldn't
I'll
mind,
take it.
if we could stay healthy and yeah,
I won't say no.
ex-
If they could
me
offer
neither.
that. Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
I'll take it too. But then we have to get everybody that we love to live forever, and then because you don't want to see that happen. So, oh,
I
too many things to
know.
think
Yeah, you
about.
just got to focus
You
and can't go full circle back to it. Just got to focus on what's in front of us right now.
I know. I'll get overwhelmed though with
Yeah.
life.
And final question on that whole thing, just going back, I guess the one other thing that came to mind, you said sort of you had to be brought back to life at one point. When is that what you actually died and got brought back to
Yes,
life? What was that experience like? Do you remember much from it? How was that?
it happened 3 times, I believe. The first time was full on cardiac arrest when I turned, and I only know what happened because Dave, who um, was my boyfriend for like 6 years, so he's one of my best friends, but he was there in the room watching it happen, which has stayed with him forever. I basically remember the worst experience of basically you're just suffocating to death and you just cannot breathe,
Mm.
and there are doctors looking at you. Then apparently I turned blue, and then I started to just go into, I guess, not shock, but I don't know what you call it. I left, I was gone. So I don't know what happened after that. All I know is that I was in a coma, which I don't even know if I mentioned, for 4 days. And when I woke up from the coma, that was the first time I died. I woke up from the coma. My mother was there, and I was like, this doesn't make sense because she was in New York. And when you wake up from a coma, at least a 4-day coma, and it was an induced coma, I thought I just got here. Like, I don't understand. So you have no consciousness of the fact that time went by. And I was kind of frustrated. I was like, why doesn't anybody understand that I just got here? Like, this doesn't make sense. How are you here? I kept saying to my mother.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the first time the second time, so the following times that I died were trying to transport me from Cedars-Sinai to UCLA for transplant. Every time they tried to move me, ECMO, which was my lungs and my heart, if it moved even a little bit and disconnected for like 15 seconds, or I would go into that same state of,
Wow.
and then I would go out. So, and they told me, they're like, we have to try to move you now. And this might happen, right? Imagine. And I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't move. But they had to move me. So knowing you have to feel that again, it's like, and sure enough, she said, don't worry, it's only going to be, sure enough. So I was holding my hand and she's like, and sure enough, I felt that same thing again. And I went out and they had to bring me back again. So that happened, I think 3 times total. Finally, they realized they couldn't send me to UCLA. UCLA had to come get me, which is a whole other story. But I could not be disconnected from that machine at all. Or I died basically. So yes, it's quite a feeling. It's quite a feeling. There's no way to describe that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's suffocating. You know? It's not great. It's not great.
What a story. Yeah. I mean, we're sort of getting close to the end. I've got a few minutes left here, but like, I think you need sort of not enough time to really cover everything here, but it's just, I mean, such an impactful story and all of your messages are so relevant. So I think everyone listening will take a lot out of that. Before we go in, we have 5 closing questions that we finish every episode with. Before I go into that, where can our listeners go if they want to learn more about you or find any other information? Where can we send them? If you feel like you've lost control of your health physically or mentally, Move Your Mind is here to help you. We guide you through weight loss, lifestyle change, and resetting your mindset without any extremes or overwhelm. If this resonates and you want to learn more, simply go to my Instagram at nickbracks and click the link on the bio to fill out an application, and I'll send you over more information about the program. Thank you for supporting the podcast. If you find this show helpful, please share it with a friend and follow me on Instagram. It really helps.
Everything is under my name, which is one of the more complicated names. It's Chloe Temtchine, but nobody has my name. So if you type in anything that sounds like Chloe Temtchine, you should find me. So, but ChloeTemtchine.com, YouTube, Chloe Temtchine, Instagram, Chloe Temtchine. So that's it. Okay. It's my name.
Great.
Everywhere. I'm all over the place.
Nice and easy. So we'll have all the links in the show notes. So anyone listening, make sure to go check it out. We will jump into the closing questions. So the first one is what...
Okay.
Throw you in the deep end here.
I'm so nervous.
Nothing too crazy. Nothing too crazy. Go. We'll see. What's your best childhood memory that comes to mind for you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Oh my God, this is like picking from...
one of the best, yeah.
Christmas moment, maybe. I mean, it's like the first thing. I'm just giving you what comes to my head without thought. Christmas, like a nice Christmas with my family. Maybe when I received a hamster named Baby. So I'll leave it at that. So many memories, but I'll just pick this most random one.
Love it.
A hamster named Baby.
Love it. What would you say is currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
Oh, wow. Probably the seclusion of people. The seclusion. I mean, for kids living on their phone, living on their computer, not actually communicating with their family, you know, like we used to sit and talk.
Yeah.
Remember that time? But being so separated and so secluded that I think they lose, we, whomever, a sense of self-esteem almost that kind of dissipates, and then they become very sensitive to what's said, and that can be quite dangerous because life is online and you can be very vulnerable. if you're not solid. And I think that solidity comes from family and communication and friends and communication and live togetherness.
So true.
So probably that, I would say, if I'm thinking
Well
quickly.
said. I think it's such an important point. It really is. What would you say your personal definition of happiness is?
Oh, man, these are like things I'd like to think about. I should have probably known this. I should have known these questions. My definition of happiness, I think it's really, for me, it's like joy to, I mean, oh my God, I'm so happy because I'm alive. I think the consciousness of, first of all, I'm so happy when I'm creating, but ultimately a little deeper than that is, and it's the obvious, but it's real. It's gratitude. Because when we realize, or when I realize how lucky I am, there's no happier that I can be, if that makes sense. So ultimately, in the end, it's gratitude. Uh, and I feel that. And again, I have those moments in life where I'm like, oh my God, walking up a hill, which I couldn't do, you know, and I'm like, oh, I just burst into tears. If I'm with someone, I also burst into, they're like, what the? And I'm like, no, 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 I'm so happy. I don't know what to do. Like, it's just overwhelming
Yeah.
gratitude is probably happiness to me. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I equate happiness
Oh, it
with.
definitely does. Definitely does. No, I love it. If you could give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
I would probably say, oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And I would say because you have to go through what you have to go through to know. So it's really difficult to say, here's what you should know.
Yeah.
Like, or like, you know, pick up the phone when your family calls because you don't realize the value of people you love. Like, there's so many things I could tell myself. Appreciate the moments of your life, like, you know, appreciate the people in them. There's so many things, but they don't carry weight unless you feel them. So I would say listen to yourself. Like, for me, it's been a process of getting to know myself. And I am a huge believer in God. I don't necessarily practice any religion, but I believe in something greater. And I would say stay in that when you get lost. Stay in whatever it is you believe. If you believe in something greater, if you have faith in something greater, stay with that, because that for me has guided me through my entire life. And I have needed that when times have gotten so difficult. But again, I can't really convey anything to myself because I know I had to go through everything to feel this way.
Totally.
So just enjoy the experience because it's going to happen. So just enjoy it, do your best, and have
Yeah.
faith.
I think it's such a good point what you're saying there, that, you know, we could give so much advice to our past selves, but we're not going to really, the advice won't mean that much unless we've lived through it. So it's a good reminder that, you know, you need to go through the ups and downs to learn the lessons. And that's what we need to, we need to remember that when we're going through it, so we can, you know, understand why that's happening.
Even the wrong moves we make, you know, it's sort of like I could tell myself, well, don't do that one thing that, you know, but that led to that, which then made me learn that, right? So it's hard to go back and be like, don't do anything that didn't work out. Because it does, because here we are.
Exactly.
Right? Every step you took got you here. So it's hard to go back and change anything.
Totally.
You know?
It's a good way to look at it. So final one, what are you most proud of?
Probably the fact that I was able to survive. Really, I mean, because it was not easy. I think in terms of everything, that's probably the biggest one. I'm proud of the fact that I have it in me to never give up, if that makes sense. Like, if I were to really, it's funny that this is just coming to me because this is something I'd really think about, but I think that I just thought it the other day when I was working on a song, going nuts, right? Because I'm so like, everything has to be right, everything. And I thought, wow, this is that same thing I have with everything, right? That matters to me. I had it with my life. I didn't give up, and I won't, right? I'll die trying, basically, and I don't. And so maybe I'm the most proud of my inability even to give up. I just don't even have it in me.
I love that.
That
Well,
I'll
that's
do that.
a good note to finish on. And I think it's the most important one. Just, doesn't matter what the outcome is, you just don't give up. That's what
Don't
everyone should remember that. I think it's a good one.
you
Yeah.
can
No
That's
alternative.
just
Yeah, exactly.
and you'll get there. You'll actually get
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of figuring
The
out
path
how.
might be a bit different, but you will get there if you don't give up.
That's where creativity comes in. It's just a matter of figuring out how you're going to do
Exactly.
it. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Chloe, thank you so much for sharing your story, and wow, so much in there. I think obviously we could have talked for a lot longer, and so many other questions I'd love to explore, but we might have to do a round two at some time. But thank you for coming on. I'm sure our listeners will take so much out of it, and you've got such a powerful story. So I think it's amazing that you're going to share this to help other people, and I think there's so much that'll come out of it. So yeah, thank you for everything you're doing.
My goodness. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me. And your story's wonderful, and I hope to get to know you more. This is like me. I know very little about you, but I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Definitely. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chloe Temtchine, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or just send me a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.